good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Coffee and EVs for August 2024. Uh, I've got some news articles like I usually do. If anybody else has any news articles or items they want to share, feel free to jump in. I do see, is it Daniel Rodriguez? I don't really recognize the name, and pardon me if you've already been on the call, but if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself and your vehicle, feel free to do so.
Yeah, this is my first call, so yeah, you wouldn't have recognized me before, but I joined the group originally when I had a Chevy Volt, just because I was interested in going full EV. And this past weekend, I actually finally made the jump, and I bought an Ioniq 5.
All right, great.
So I'm excited to have that. I just kind of joined just to kind of find out more of what's going on in West Virginia and other people with EVs. I don't know as much as I would like, and would just like to learn more. It's pretty much why I'm hopping on.
Well, great. Glad you were able to join us. And feel free to, if you have any particular questions or if you want to take a few minutes and just if you've got something specific you want to address, we'll be happy to. We've got some other. I know we've got Rick Walker is on as another Ioniq owner. If you have any Ioniq specific questions, he could probably help you out.
Awesome. No, at the moment, just gonna might be a little quiet the first time around, but
sure, understood.
More on these.
All right. Well, as far as just to get us started out, some news items. Let me share my screen here that I thought were kind of interesting here of late. If I could share my screen, there it is. Saw this a few days ago. We've had a lot of models, electric vehicle models that have hit the 5,000 sales mark in second quarter. So we've got a lot more vehicles posting some bigger numbers. This article talks about, we've all heard about the slowdown in EV sales, but we've got a lot of models posting higher numbers now. Even the Aria, which I don't know that I have seen one of those on the road yet, but they've broke the 5,000 mark with those as well. I thought that was kind of neat.
So now is that second quarter or is that total or?
Yeah, second quarter, 2024.
Second quarter, okay.
Yeah, so most recent completed quarter.
It's interesting to see the Ioniq up that high because you don't get the tax credit. So that's 11,000 people that lost $7,500 that they put that out of their pocket like I did. And then you have to go all the way down to I didn't think the Toyota BZ4X was selling that well. I'm really surprised. It's not a great EV.
Right. It's not, and the Solterra, I don't know if the Solterra didn't make this list, but the Toyota did. And the Mach-E's not eligible for the tax credit any longer either.
Well, why is that?
They just didn't meet the requirements starting this year.
I was told.
Go ahead, John.
Ford, when I was looking, when we were getting ready to buy, because they were doing that 0% financing, that they were actually giving that $7,500 off of the top of the car purchase price.
Right, and Hyundai's doing something similar, Hyundai and Kia, where they're not eligible for the credit. The OEM is basically making a incentive equal to that. So some of these car makers are trying to make up for the lack of the incentive, the tax credit. But yeah, that to your point, Rick. Yeah, that is it's nice to see some of these other vehicles posting some big numbers, even though they don't have access to the tax credit. And I know we've had a few folks on here talk about Aptera. And some folks are interested in them. I saw that they took delivery, I guess, of their first production intent bodies. So these will be, they'll be building these out probably for crash testing and further testing, but these are production intent vehicles. So Aptera is still out there, still moving forward. I didn't know that they would even make it this far, but they're still out there. We'll see if they can turn out something and how well it's received, and if they can convert a lot of those reservations into orders. I don't know if anyone on this call has an Aptera reservation. Larry, did you have one? I think Scott had one.
I had one. I don't know. I just bought my second Tesla, so I'm not sure about buying another electric car, because I've got a really great golf cart that has lithium iron phosphate batteries, good for like 35 miles, and will climb anything. It's a great vehicle. Mm-hmm. Just got it a few months ago.
All right. Then I saw this was just today. And this, I mean, it mentions Tesla, of course, but this would apply to Lucid and Rivian also. Any of the new direct to consumer OEMs. So Tesla had somewhat of a victory in their quest to allow direct sales in Louisiana. It's sad that they have to kind of fight this battle state by state in some of these states to allow Rivian, Lucid, Tesla to sell direct. But so hopefully you might see some movement in Louisiana, and maybe they can use what they learn in Louisiana and some of the other states.
Let me ask just two questions. Number one is, will people in surrounding states, like we can't sell them here, but people cross the river and go to Ohio. Mm-hmm. So if we don't need to get every state that they allow it, they can just have, maybe you go to a showroom, you live in West Virginia, you can still buy it. You're just officially buying it in Ohio, right?
Well, I mean, a lot of these states, they won't even allow them to have showrooms.
Well, we don't either. There's no showroom.
Right. They're not allowed. They're not allowed to have it.
But if Louisiana gets a showroom, then I would guess that Alabama could jump on that too.
Yeah, it'd probably help other folks in surrounding states that live near the borders. Yeah.
Are there any gas cars that want to sell direct, or are they all tied into the dealership model?
I think they've been around for so long. All the legacy manufacturers have been in existence for so long that I think they pretty much all have dealers. Go ahead, James.
It's not a current, gas vehicle that's running into that problem, but we saw this years ago, back when I still lived in Louisiana, when Genesis, separated from Hyundai and was trying to bring their vehicles into the state. There was this big hubbub where the Louisiana Motor Vehicle Commission, put in a stop and several lawsuits against Genesis and Hyundai because the Genesis was trying to sell the vehicles through the Hyundai dealerships after becoming a separate entity, and they basically stopped them until 2 years later when the first Genesis dealership was built in the state. So it's amazing to me that Tesla's pulled off this win, because I know that was a huge uphill battle for them. Had to be.
Well, and if you read the article, it's not a full win. It's just, they won a part of the court battle, and now it's going to be, remanded back to another court. So they haven't actually won yet, but they won a victory in the battle, the ongoing battle.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on what Rick said. For me, when I was looking to purchase full electric, Tesla did come to mind, but the fact that we have no service centers here in the state of West Virginia held me back from wanting to purchase Tesla. And, this might be different people who are using it as a second vehicle, but I wanted to use it as my primary vehicle. So, I can charge it home and everything, but if I ever have an issue, I would have to, a big issue, I assume I would have to get it taken up to the service center in Ohio.
Tesla does have mobile service. That's what I use here in West Virginia.
Yeah, okay.
But you're right. If it's something significant that they can't do in mobile service, yes, it would have to go back to an actual Tesla service center in Columbus or Cincinnati or somewhere close by.
Yeah, I think that might hold people back just from wanting to purchase just
Yeah,
similar.
it's definitely an issue for all, not just Tesla, for Rivian, Lucid, and Tesla. Any of the direct sales companies, if they can't have a showroom, they can't have a service center in a state because we've got these monopolistic dealership laws that are preventing it, then that's a problem. And for anyone who doesn't know, like just real quick, the history of that is these laws have been on the books for decades. They were originally created to protect dealerships from manufacturers. So way back when dealerships first started coming out, we're talking like in the 30s and 40s. So when you invested in a dealership, there was a fear, and apparently at that time there was actual, I guess, precedent that you could become a Ford dealer, and then Ford would open up a factory store down the street, and now Ford could undercut you because you're a dealer and you've got your expenses, but Ford could sell direct. So the dealership laws are put in place to protect dealers from predatory OEM actions. So there's nothing wrong with those rules. I mean, they serve a purpose. But the problem is if you're a direct to consumer manufacturer like Tesla, Rivian, and Lucid, then you have no dealers. There's no one to compete against. So you shouldn't be using these laws to protect dealers that don't exist. They've twisted those laws now to say, oh, well, that means every auto transaction has to go through a dealer. But obviously that's not the case, and it doesn't need to be the case. All right, well, before I get on my soapbox about that. On the truck front, talking, medium heavy duty stuff, Isuzu is coming out with medium duty trucks, all electric. We see stuff periodically about the semis, like the Tesla Semi and the new Windrose Semi, and heavy duty stuff. But the medium duty stuff, there's a lot of value in this medium duty stuff, doing fleet deliveries and other kind of stuff in a local area. And we know Rivian's got their van for Amazon. There's a couple of other manufacturers that have got vans for deliveries. So this is just upping that game beyond just vans into these medium duty trucks. So cool stuff there. Well, this one's probably a little more applicable to everybody that's looking to use a supercharger. I know a lot of folks have been waiting a while for their supercharger adapters on the Ford side. I know Ford owners have been waiting a while, and even on the Rivian side. James, did you ever get your adapter? You did get your adapter. That's right. You told me that.
No, I hadn't gotten the one from Rivian or from Tesla / Rivian yet. I've only gotten, third-party adapters.
Third-party adapter, okay. But apparently they're ramping up production of those, so hopefully they'll get through the backlog for people who want those adapters. And hopefully, go ahead.
When Hyundai is going to start putting out the adapters?
I haven't heard about. I was just going to say we haven't heard from any other manufacturers, but I think GM is next on the list. So the GM brands will probably get theirs next, and then I'm not sure who's after that.
Do we know if most of the other manufacturers, I had heard that like Ford and General Motors was going to start putting the new vehicles sold after 25 were going to have the NACS plug.
No, I mean, I think all North American OEMs have committed to switch over to NACS. So that's coming to all of them. Don't know when that's going to happen. Although we did just see, there was an article here, I don't know, last month or so, where Hyundai, Kia were testing new vehicles with the NACS native port. So we're already starting to see, manufacturers integrate the new port. So I wouldn't surprise me if Kia and Hyundai are the first to have that natively in their vehicles, on new vehicles.
One wonders how long the adapters will be needed, and will the DC charging stations eventually, like they've really pretty much gotten it. John was showing me yesterday how there was a CHAdeMO plug on the charge point chart, and it wasn't even working. So will they slowly pass over to having all NACS connectors, and we won't need adapters after another 5 years?
No, I think you're right. It'll take a little while, but yeah, we'll switch over when we won't need them, and then there'll still be a few CCS plugs out there, just like Chatamo plugs now, but may not get as much love as far as maintenance goes. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I watched a video recently about that. They do have a retrofit available for that. It's going to be up to the location site owner that owns those chargers. A big part of those ChargePoint chargers are not owned by ChargePoint, so those will be up to the site owners to make that expenditure and for it to accept that new adapter. But no one has ever addressed the fact that those Chatamo ports are there and that they are disabled right now. I've even tried to contact them, ChargePoint, by email and by phone, and I cannot get that addressed.
I mean, on the Chatamo side, really, it's leaf owners are the only ones really being impacted.
On the charging front, a couple of weeks ago, Dave Casbolt, mayor of Nitro, told me that they had applied for a grant to put DC fast chargers in at the Nitro exit of 64.
Mm-hmm.
And I went by his office yesterday, and he and his assistant were as I went in, were reviewing the proposal that had come to them, and what they were proposing to put in was a level 3 with 4 stations, and 2 of them would be the NACS and 2 would be the other for other vehicles. So I don't know that it's a done deal, but he was going to take it before their board down there, and he was setting up a meeting. And they said next week, if I'd stop by, they'd probably have more information for me. He asked me if I thought people would use them, and I didn't have a very good answer for that.
Well, I mean, I think non-Tesla owners would certainly be interested.
I think when Marty and I think Larry and I were at the NEVI meeting in Cross Lanes, somebody brought up the question about the phase 1, phase 2, but then the third part, there was a lady from Nitro, Larry, where she said, we put this in, but it does nothing to do with the state, doesn't do that. They just apply directly. That's that. And Robert sent out some links about that about 2 months ago. And I think that's where, so they're going to put in these they don't have to meet NEVI standards, but I think with their distance that they're going to be, they'll probably get a fair amount of business.
Yeah.
People will stop going to Yes Chevrolet, even though it's a nice charger, because they only have the 2 plugs. The other thing I saw, and you guys know more about this than I, there was a place that had 4 plugs, and they were they were 50 kilowatt or something like that, but they were using the NEVI funds not to build new, but to upgrade them to 150 kilowatt each and make it a NEVI station. And I didn't know you could do that. I thought you could only use NEVI funds for a new installation. But no, a lot of these states, like Maryland, has thousands and thousands of DC chargers. There is no such thing as level 3, but DC chargers. But they're going to be able to repurpose some of those as NEVI and use NEVI funds for the upgrade. And I didn't know that.
I hadn't seen it specifically, but yeah, I don't see any reason why they couldn't. I mean, you're just saying as part of your application that I can meet this spec at this location, and whether I build it out from scratch or I upgrade these facilities, as long as at the end of the day they meet the specification, yeah, it shouldn't matter. But that'll give those folks like Maryland, where they've already got a lot of those stations, maybe give them a leg up to get it up quickly.
My understanding, the Nitros would be over 200. I thought they said something like 224 or 242 KW or something like that.
Okay. John, did you have something on that?
Yeah, so there is a small demand for CHAdeMO still, at least the CHAdeMO adapter for the Tesla, for these people who are buying salvage Teslas that cannot supercharge. But that'll be also a demand on these sites that will have the NACS connector for those cars to be able to fast charge when they're road tripping, since they can't use the Teslas.
But that's still
It's
limited.
got to be a pretty small group of people.
I had a gentleman who reached out to me about mine. He wanted to purchase it, but he wanted it that night and wanted me to drive halfway. I was willing to drive halfway down around Mayberry, North Carolina, to meet him, but he wanted it that night and couldn't wait. So that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Now, are they limited to the 50 kilowatts when they use the CHAdeMO and a Tesla adapter? You're still limited to 50, which is pretty soon not going to be called fast charge. It's going to be in that slower charge group along with the 40s and the 24s.
Correct. Yes, that
and
is
John.
correct.
John, do you know if you get the CCS adapter for Tesla, will that also work for those cars?
That would also work for those cars if they retrofit them. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Daniel, do you have something you want to ask?
Yeah. One thing that I noticed, I know they're putting in new chargers, but I'm just wondering how common this is. I stopped by a charger in Gallipolis, and that charger charged like $10 off the bat just to start charging, and then they were charging like outrageous, like per minute and per kilowatt charges, like all combined. So it was ridiculous.
And parking charges. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just that one. It's been in, and it was really nice for a while, and they decided they had to change the rules. They obviously don't want people to use them. Not quite as bad. There's one in Lexington, Virginia, that's AC level 2 at a hotel or restaurant, and they don't want people plugging there except when they're eating. So it's $1 an hour for the first 3 hours, which is wonderful. The electricity's more than $1 for an hour, but then it's $10 an hour after that. And this guy plugged in his truck overnight.
Oh,
$115 he had to pay. So you got to read the rules. But yeah, Gallipolis used to have a nice one, but they've fallen off now. And all of us put comment, don't use this because you pay for parking, plus it's like 75 cents a kilowatt hour, plus a $10 initiation fee.
Which is insane for me. And there's nothing else really in that general area, at least that I saw, to charge at. And, I have family near Pomeroy, Ohio. So I was, thinking I could stop there and charge, but nope, not going to do that.
But yeah, that's not too common, Daniel. I mean, yeah, but you do run into some of that here and there.
Okay, that's good.
Sorry to butt in. I know Scott has his hand up, but on that note, when we were checking out that charger there in Pomeroy, I noticed that there was a 2-hour free charge, and then after that they were going to start charging, but I cannot remember what it was, but it's probably listed on PlugShare.
Oh, nice. I'll have to look it up. I actually didn't realize there was a charger in Pomeroy.
And are you familiar with PlugShare, Daniel?
I am not.
All right, so yeah, that is a great resource and website. Definitely check that out. It's available as an app you can put on your phone, but it's also a website. So it's plugshare.com, all one word. And then that's probably the Bible for finding pretty much any level 2, level 3, anything, even just outlets at a campground. It'll have everything, and you have filters, and you can search and look for things in certain areas.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for letting me know.
Mm-hmm. It also, the other important aspect of that is not just finding them, but you can see reviews left by other users. So you kind of know if you see like the last 5 reviews, everybody says it's busted, not working, then don't bother going there. All right, Scott, do you have something you wanted to add? You might be on mute. you're still on mute.
Okay. It showed earlier when I joined the call that you had everyone on mute. Maybe everybody was on mute by themselves or whatever. Sorry about that. I was going to say sometimes it turns out for the better. I missed an opportunity when we were projecting going around Chicago. We were going to be fairly low at the other end, like 9 or 10%. I stopped a Oasis that was being torn up by the Illinois Department of Transportation. And as I was walking in past construction stuff, there was a charge point, I think it was, and I thought, oh, there'll be a charge for that, and I think we can get there. As I came back out, I thought, well, maybe let me look at it, and I pushed it and said, oh, no charge. I could have plugged in probably for the time, gotten another 4, 5, 6% because it was a 230 volt charger, so level 2. So
yeah, sometimes it surprises you.
Yeah. And later I'll show you, I'm going to bring up a couple pictures of a charging situation as here in South Charleston, and then also a bike rack that I saw on the Model Y. So keep going.
I just had a
great YouTube channel called Engineering Explained, and he just had a recent 2 of them all about nickel cobalt batteries, and then all about LFP and the different ways you're supposed to charge them. And I thought it was very fascinating. And I was running mine down to 10%. And he said, if you really want your battery to last a lot longer and you have the old formulation, which I do, he said, it's a pain in the butt, but make a balance between going down to 30 and only going to 70. And then when you need to, go higher. But I don't want to think about it much. I usually let it run down to 20 and then charge up to 90. But he said, yeah, if you can go 80 instead of 90 while you're at home, and just even if you plug in every night, get in that habit, it's better for your nickel cobalt manganese battery. Right? It's Engineering Explained, it's called. He's a wonderful speaker.
Yeah, I've watched both of those videos, Rick. I agree. Those are, if you really like the nerdy details about batteries and recommendations on charging them, and he also references Jeff Don's work in the NMC video. That Jeff Don is a researcher in Canada for batteries. So anyway, yeah, I highly recommend that if you really like those details. And I also kind of changed my charging because of that, Rick. I mean, I would do probably not 20 to 90, but I might do more like 30 to 80. But I've really changed mine since I don't need a lot of juice for daily driving. I'm doing 40 to 60 and just charge more frequently in those small bite sizes. I mean, and to be honest, I mean, he even says it in the video that it's probably not going to matter a whole lot for the life that you own the vehicle. But if you really want to try to just max out, battery health, those are like best practices.
And that's even for the Teslas, because Tesla at times recommend going to 90 if you're on a road trip, and they were.
No, I mean, and he says that, and this is not for road trips. I mean, if you need 100%, do it.
Oh yeah,
just do it. But on the day in, day out, like commute, driving around, there's no reason for it to be sitting there at 80 to 90% if you're not really going to be using it. So, but yeah, if you're going on a trip, charge it to whatever you need and run it down to whatever you need.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, we've only had ours up to 100% probably about 5 or 6 times, and it was when we were out west.
Yeah,
and we wanted to make sure because it was projecting. We would, even with 100, get down to at the destination in the 10 to 15% range.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might mention just for Daniel and others, one of the reasons you have to have a buffer is if that one's broken, blocked, or busy, you go to the next one. But you don't have to do that when you go home. When I plan that I'm going to end up at home, I'll be 5 or 6% because it's so, even 4% because it's so accurate. And I know it's not blocked, broken, and busy. So it all has to do with, if you get to RG's Almost Heaven and it's broken, you can't get to Morgantown unless you left that extra 35 miles as a buffer. So, which is more than, it's maybe a number of percentages. So, but when you're going home, if you have a home charger, you don't have to follow those same rules.
Plus, you don't want to pay for it if you can get it much cheaper at home or free at home.
I might mention it if it fits in the discussion here. In one of my talks, I talk about the myths about EVs, and one of them, of course, the battery dies in 2 years. And as part of that, I mentioned that EV batteries, when they're no longer EV suitable, and that's defined as being 50% of your life left, charge capability, that they're deemed no longer good for moving or EV use. And the uses are to recycle them, number one. Number two, they're making solar power walls out of used EV batteries, do that. But my number three, I read about it and I said, there's some places that don't want the demand charges. So they'll put up a DC charger, but they put a big battery that they fill 24 hours a day at 240 volts. And then when a car plugs in, you discharge, and maybe enough battery for 3. Well, the latest research project that Dr. Chen has out of Tennessee Tech is doing exactly that. They're doing research on using used car batteries, and they're aiming for the Nissan. They're in partnership with Nissan because Nissan's going to have a lot of used. They'll be the first one to hit the number of used. And so they're going to see if that's really feasible to put in like 6 old car batteries, so each of them 50%, the equivalent of 3, charge it 24 hours a day at 240 volts AC, and then when a person plugs in, just crank it up to 800 volts and discharge a third of it into their car in as fast a time as they can. So that's the whole, and that's what Max is going to be doing. He's going to be off the Rural Reimagine project and onto the SMART project, SMART. Which is, and I read the whole thing, and it's doing exactly that. The feasibility of using car batteries that are no longer suitable for all of the DC stations in the country should have batteries there, and they shouldn't be asking the grid for that. They should ask a battery for the power. I thought it was fascinating, and I can give anybody the link if they want it.
I mean, yeah, you've seen a lot of Electrify America, Tesla, and other CP charge point operators using batteries to avoid grid charges for that kind of stuff. But generally they're buying the utility and commercial scale batteries to do that. But yeah, if you could repurpose the older EV batteries, yeah, that's a great use for them.
And Firewire, as Marty pointed out over a year ago, they only make them with the unit has a battery as part of it. They're not doing terribly well, but they're doing better in other countries.
Did I see something? They went out of business.
May have. I did see something like that too, and I don't know if they just went out or they wanted to sell it to be acquired by somebody else.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember the details. All right, John, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I got 2 things on the line of what Rick was talking about. I've been seeing from time to time and I'm not sure what the company's name is. They are taking the full packs out of the used EVs that the battery pack has been down to 50%, and they're putting them in. They built a rack system in a shipping container, and they're sliding them into a shipping container and wiring them up from both ends. They're doing this, and in the center they have their battery management system and cooling system for the battery packs themselves, and turning them into essentially mobile battery storage that they're trying to sell. And then an interesting thing this week on Ryan McCaffrey's podcast on his Tesla tips or pro tips was one gentleman was talking about an easy way to calculate your range on a road trip, whether you had enough to get to your destination when you're getting down low, is to take your percentage and double that. So say you're at 30% and you double that, that's 60. That's 60%. The 60 would turn around and be 60 miles, because the most you're going to use is 2 kilowatts per mile. And I haven't done the math myself, but you should have enough to get to your destination. Say you only have 50 miles, and you would have plenty of range left.
Unless it's all uphill in the winter.
Well, yeah, and you have resistive heater packs.
Daniel, did you have a question earlier?
Oh, nope. I commented earlier.
Okay.
Don't have one anymore.
All right. Larry, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah. something that was on our Facebook group. I wanted to put in a plug for another thing on Nitro. The 5th and 6th, Nitro has what they call the Boomtown Days. And they've had cruise-ins for people with their antique cars and modified cars and whatever. They decided this year on the Friday evening, the 5th, to have an EV cruise-in.
Oh,
electric vehicle cruise-in. So anybody that wants to participate in that, they're going to shut off 21st Street and another street next adjacent to it. And I look for there to be a lot of cars there. The Nitro has a police car that it'll be there. Ron Cole, that owns T&M Meats out at Cross Lanes, has the Cybertruck Beast. I talked to him. He's planning to be there.
What was the date again, Larry?
It's the 5th.
September 5th? Okay.
September 5th, 5 p.m. And 5 p.m. as long as people want to stay. There's going to be music and food and, a lot of things going on.
Okay. Can you send that out to the group on the email list to make sure everybody gets notified of it?
Yeah, I'll send maybe.
Or if you want to send it to me, I'll send it out.
Yeah, I'll just send it to you.
And do they have a link or a website or a flyer or anything about it?
They have a flyer.
Or if you want to take a picture of the flyer and send it to me, that's fine.
Yeah, I've already have a picture of the flyer and I've printed it out a couple of times and given it to people. And I don't know how to do anything with it.
Or
really.
just text it to me or something and I can send it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. I think we want to let folks know. I mean, I wish I could make it, but I'm a little far away in Martinsburg. But got a lot of folks down in the Charleston, Huntington area who might certainly want to come out for that. Especially since it's an event specifically for electric vehicles. That's impressive.
I think I just sent it to you there.
Okay, I'll look here in a second. As far as other articles, I did see we're talking about low-priced EVs, and the focus is always on China and the Chinese EVs that certainly have some lower cost, interesting models available in other countries like Europe. But I did see this Hyundai that they're selling in Korea that starts at $23,000. So that's not a Chinese make. What is everybody's thoughts about getting a vehicle like this here in the U.S.? Would folks be interested in a $23,000 EV, even if it's probably a little on the smaller side, and probably doesn't have really, really long range?
I think a lot of people would be interested for an in-town car.
A commuter, yeah.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
I think it looks kind of cool. It's a little hatchback. Probably, I don't know, it might be smaller than a Bolt or about the same size as a Bolt. Looks like it's Bolt size.
There was a picture that I ran across about the Chinese EV market and their exports, and they had basically like a crate, a vertical crate that they were getting ready to load on a ship, and each vertical had like 5 to 6 cars at least in it. And along the same lines, I think that's what Tesla is trying to do to compete with them with the with that change they're looking to make or making to send the Model 3 into Mexico. Their exports into Mexico, where they've stripped out the vegan leather seats down to a cloth, taken out the new ambient lighting, and things of that nature, even down to going back to the old glass that was in the Model 3 originally, for the single pane. And I don't know what else they've stripped out of it.
Well, the sound system would be another thing to go, probably.
And no option for rear seats, heated seats in it.
Yeah.
Wasn't something else. So the number was astronomical. I don't want to quote it because I don't want to misquote it. but it was, I want to say it was dropping the car in half or below, which the Model 3 is roughly a $40,000 car still, and it was dropping it, significantly.
I think I saw a number around 30 though last time, but I don't know that we have final information on that and how it would translate into the U.S.
Right.
There's a YouTuber named Sam Evans who calls his channel the Electric Viking, and he had one about 4 months ago about the Chinese vehicles, and he said that they're lower priced because they're incredibly bare bones, and it's not that they're making a Tesla for half the price. You just can't do it. And then just today he had one on that said that BYD was the only Chinese automaker, EV automaker, that's actually running a profit. All the others need their government subsidy. So the government wants people to drive EVs because they're also paying for the health care, which if you get rid of all the lung pollution from cars, your lung cancer rate's going to get cut in half, and it's going to save you $500,000 for each lung cancer case that you wipe out because they never got it. It's $500,000 you can spend towards EVs. So they're really pushing the EVs, but the companies themselves are not able to manufacture them and sell them at that low price without government help. Electric Viking.
I see this model has 196 mile range is what they're quoting from Hyundai. Oh, and I want to bring another one over here. Hold on a second. There it is. Who saw this coming? I mean, we know Norway has been right on the cusp of, I think they actually do ban internal combustion vehicles next year. And their sales of EVs is like up in 90% range of the market. But now we got Ethiopia has already banned internal combustion engine cars. And, I question how they can do that, but
all their oil's imported,
I know why they want
solar instead of $1 billion or $1 million a day worth of oil to make electricity. They're going to go with sun and wind. And I think Ethiopia, which has lots of sunshine and no oil, it makes no sense to continue to import all that oil for cars.
I mean, I totally agree, and I think it's a great reason. It's just I just didn't know that they could make that flip the switch like so instantaneously. It's like I don't know that their grid and their infrastructure will be ready for an instantaneous switch.
Did they give a time frame, or is it just happening immediately?
I think it's happening
2035.
That's the EU.
Yeah, Ethiopia, however, isn't waiting till 2035. Ethiopia is trying to ban ICE vehicles now. I read there was going to be this year.
That's cool.
I mean, that's bold. I will give them that. It is bold. It is a bold move.
Well, it really sounds like they're going to be investing in some batteries to balance their grid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and not just the grid and the infrastructure, of course, is one concern, but I mean, you have this huge ICE population out there now. You got to be able to sell and service electric vehicles. You got to be able to import them. It seems like there's a lot of things you need to do to be ready for this, but hey, it's a bold move. I applaud them. All right. And then the last blurb I had, I thought I always hate these. Well, one, they always have to work Tesla in the headlines, but, BMW says BMW tops Tesla in EV sales for the first time, blah, blah, blah. Anytime you see one of these that says EV sales, because they do this with some of the Chinese manufacturers too, you always got to look at the fine print, and what they mean are hybrids. And if you include plug-in hybrids and battery electrics, then so-and-so can beat whoever. It's just, but I hate it when they do that, because when I think of EV sales, I'm thinking battery electrics, and of course, BMW wasn't close in battery electrics. They're just including all their plug-in hybrids. And Toyota likes to do that too because they've got all their plug-in hybrids. But the future is battery electric. I mean, plug-in hybrids still have a place. Nothing wrong with them for those who need them in their driving situations and geographies. But when I think electric vehicle, I'm thinking battery electric. And when you include plug-in hybrids in sales to say that so and so is better than some other company sold more, then I think that's a little disingenuous, but just my opinion.
Well, I think Toyota was the one, correct me if I'm wrong, that started the term electrified vehicles so they can include all of their hybrids. And there's nothing, it's 100% from gasoline, but they call, in fact, early on, I showed you this statistic before, when Toyota first came out with this in 1997, the pollution got worse because it was so much cheaper, people drove more miles than they did before. And it actually, for about 2 years, was worse, and then it got better.
Go ahead, John.
So couldn't they just turn around and put an inverter in those vehicles and put a 110 on a gas vehicle, and so it's electrified now? I mean,
yeah,
I could see them doing that, including those totals of those vehicles in this.
I mean, that's in Toyota. They got in trouble. I think it was in Europe or Britain. Was it the self-charging electric vehicle? Is what they were calling it. Self-charging, as long as you put gas in it, it's self-charging. Daniel, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on the Toyota thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't the PHEVs from Toyota, if you're running on pure electric, they run extremely slow. Like they're not even at their rated horsepower. They're cut substantially.
Well, yeah, because their horsepower ratings are the combination of what the ICE motor and the electric motor can put out.
See, I had the Chevy Volt, and I loved the Volt. The technology in that is fantastic. You get the full power all the time because you're running off of the electric engine. It's and you get so much more range than the Toyota.
I mean, that's the parallel hybrid versus series hybrid discussion. And yeah, Toyota is just really in love with their parallel hybrid setup. But one of the downsides is you only get the boost in power when both drivetrains are contributing.
A friend of mine works for Toyota down here, building the hybrid drivetrains down at Buffalo, and he's due to get their all-electric vehicle, but it's actually made by Subaru.
Yeah, probably the Solterra.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, that was some of the news articles I had. Anybody else have any other items, any other news bits, charging, anything else going on in the state you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I'll show some things. Let me share my screen. Present now, I guess. How do I know which? Oh, choose what to share. Tab to share. Oh gosh.
Do you use that up there? How do you share something? I have that brochure for the Cruise In and Nitro on my computer.
I'll let you share that first while I find the photos I want to share. But do I lock him out by having requested sharing, Robert?
I don't see a request for sharing. You should be able just to share. I don't think you need to do anything. And Larry, I did get your text or your message. I've got the
yeah. I don't see how to get to.
What's the present now button? Is that the share button on this particular tool? It's not Zoom. It's a share button.
Yeah, this is the present now. The little box with the up arrow in it.
Yeah. So I guess if you do that, who first come, first serve, I guess.
First come, first serve, and choose whether you want to share a window or the whole screen.
If somebody else does that, does that block it out on mine? Does it make it that I can't hit the presenter? Do I get in a queue?
Actually, I think it'll just take, if whoever hits it next will go ahead and take over from the other person.
Okay.
Okay. There's the share I've got.
All right. I see it. It's coming up.
Okay. Anyway, what this is we were passing by the Fairfield Inn in South Charleston, and we a lot of times see multiple cars there charging. Well, they were paving the parking lot, as you can see in the background, this nice fresh asphalt. This Model 3 must have been desperate and was staying there, so he just pulled around to the side street where you can park kind of in a little cutout off the street and pulled up. I don't know why he had to do that. Maybe there was another vehicle to the left because he should have been able to parallel park earlier. But anyway, when you really need the charge, you'll go to some.
You will find a way.
You will find a way. So, and then the other thing, I'll share a different screen. Let's see if I can click on it. Nope, I've got to. I guess I'll stop share and then come back to it.
Well, Scott's pulling that up. I threw in chat a link to the Pilot Flying J EV charging article. Keep an eye on it if you're going by one of those. They do have EV charging now, and they're putting in and Ohio is one of the biggest places they are putting it in, the most populated.
I wish we could get a few of those at the Flying J's over here, like Flatwoods, which I think is on their list, but it's just you don't know when it's going to happen.
There's a YouTuber that's doing a weekly update and has a spreadsheet. So I'll try to find that and send you the link to that, Robert.
Okay. Yeah, I can send it out with the recording. Got your bike rack there, Scott?
Yeah, this was we saw him when we were going from across southern Michigan on our way to Wisconsin, and this Model Y pulled up, and they were actually driving from Boston down to San Diego. Their names, I'll show the pictures of them, Don and Janet. And anyway, and they've got an electric bike, and I'd often wondered if you had a bike on whether you could charge, and obviously it shows that you could. And he's actually got room for a second bicycle. So I thought, boy, that'd be nice because we'd like to do some biking, particularly on the rail trails here. And this would allow us not to have to disassemble everything.
I don't know. That looks, I mean, sometimes those supercharger cables, especially on the V2s, are so short. Depending on how that station's laid out, you may or may not be able to make it work.
Yeah, I was surprised that they pulled in where their concrete pedestal was, because if they'd been over one more, they have
a little more room.
There's no pedestal there. They could just, it was for a light above. So I thought I'd show that to folks. And then let me see if it will allow me to, I think over on my screen. Yep, there's a close up. Oh, and he'd hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. And so we got talking with him about our son hiking the AT, and he did it when he was, he said he's around between 65 and 70 years old, hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. And then the last thing, I'm back to that one. And there they are. And they've got a 6-year-old dog, and their names are Don and Janet. They were delightful to talk with.
Nice.
It was Portage, Michigan is where the picture was taken. So that's all.
All right, and John, I saw you posted those links to the Pilot Flying J stuff. Okay. Yeah, I'll send out all these links with the recording when I send that out. All right.
Yeah, I noticed on the list that they don't have the one up the road here on 77 out on their main populated map, and I haven't got a chance to drop by that station yet, but it is on the YouTubers list.
Okay, Larry's sharing the electric vehicle cruising, and I'll send that out too with the recording.
Larry, you're on mute.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I did, and I also got it, so I'll send it out with the recording.
And you're going to send it out to the email list somehow? Is that...
Yeah, when I send out this video recording to everybody, I'll include all the links and and this.
Yeah, I wish I weren't going to be previously committed, or else I'd be there.
All right. Any last minute items before we all sign off?
Thank you for all you did to set it up.
Yep. Thank you, Robert. Sorry for joining late. I was at another meeting, physical meeting.
It happens. I will share one other thing, not really related to EVs specifically, but I got 2 Powerwall 3s installed. They are live as of last night or yesterday evening. And so I've been running on solar all day today, and now, right at this moment, the sun's down over here, but I am still running off my solar power, and I will be for a while. I did some off-grid testing with it, so I had I had the clothes dryer running, the electric range, microwave, a bunch of lights and fans, and the hot water heater kicked on. And I told it to go off grid, and you didn't even know anything happened. It was so instantaneous. The lights didn't even flicker. Everything just picked up immediately. So it's like having a UPS for your whole home. I expected there to be at least some indication that something had happened. A little slight delay. Huh?
Did you have any batteries previously?
No. I added these as an add-on to my solar. And these are AC coupled. They're not DC coupled. They're AC. So I didn't mess with my inverter and the solar system. Nothing changed on the solar system. It all stayed the way it was.
Yeah. I'll eventually follow. I'm waiting maybe for, the bigger alternate batteries, lower cost and everything. But we've achieved a milestone where I think we'll have accumulated enough over the summer that we'll ride all the way through the winter off of our banked power with Appalachian Power and just keep our electric bill at $14 a month.
Yeah, here I've got what it looks like here.
Yeah, you've got a whole bunch banked, I know. Oh, that looks great.
Yeah, so it's my garage. So you can see the electric vehicle charger, the inverter for the solar system, the 2 batteries, and this is the gateway that kind of runs it all. And these are the Powerwall 3s, so they have enough power. They can produce enough power to run the whole house. I mean, and that's everything. I mean, central air conditioning, the whole 9 yards. They'll produce they can produce 23 kilowatts of continuous power.
Do they have to be installed in a place where there's absolutely no chance of flooding?
No, actually, these things can withstand up to like 2 feet of water intrusion.
Wow.
Yeah, so let me see. I have a picture with the covers off. Let me see. Where is it?
And Robert's accepting donations from any
there we
$5.
That's what they look like with the covers off. And so the batteries are encased in this. It's all aluminum, cast aluminum shell. Uh-huh. The batteries are encased down here, so basically the water can get up to like this level before it gets into like the electronics and things.
That's cool.
So it is a pretty neat setup that they've got with these things. And this is the 3rd iteration, so they've learned a lot over the past few years about how to make
they fastened to the floor or fastened to the wall or both?
They're fastened to the wall, but they have little feet that keep them set up off the floor to allow airflow and things like that. Yeah, you can see the plywood mounting behind them so that they are mounted to the wall.
Gotcha.
I guess there's some new standards. I don't know if there'll be federal standards for installation of batteries. They're going to be trying to push them outside. Engineer 775's video, he was talking about it briefly. He was installing solar at his daughter's new house and installing them outside, basically underneath of one of the solar panels, the inverter and everything.
Well, and with the older batteries, and just like the cars, I mean, these home batteries were using the NMC chemistry, and a lot of them still do. But there are some manufacturers that are switching over to the lithium iron phosphate, and so with the Powerwall 3, Tesla also switched over to lithium iron phosphate on these batteries. Franklin Whole Home also uses LFP batteries, but a lot of the other older ones still use NMC. And the NMC ones are certainly a concern. I mean, if something goes wrong with those and they start, thermal overload, the NMC battery it produces its own oxygen for its fire. The lithium iron phosphate batteries are just a lot safer. And that was one of my requirements is like, I don't want, if it's going in my garage, it will be an LFP battery. I'm not taking an NMC for something that's going to be.
one characteristic is energy density, which if it's a stationary as opposed to moving, you don't care how many kilograms.
Right.
You said it was a safety in terms of a possible runaway lithium. It's like magnesium. You put magnesium in water and it catches on fire.
Yeah,
Any
exactly.
moisture at all.
The LFPs are just a lot more safe. I mean, they're not perfect. I mean, if you damage them enough, or you've got manufacturing defects that are bad enough, things can still go wrong. But you just got an extra layer of safety with the LFPs than you have with the NMC batteries. So if it was going in my home, it needed to be an LFP battery, especially something that's going to be permanently mounted in your home 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
And you can't roll it out if it was your car. All right, guys. Well, we're right at 8, a little after 8. So appreciate everyone joining, and we'll see you next month. Let's see here. It'll be September 24th, last Tuesday of September. So we'll see everybody back here September 24th, 7 p.m. And we'll have Indu's coming up. I haven't heard anything about Charleston Indu. And for Daniel, that's National Drive Electric Week. That's a big national series of electric vehicle events. If you can look for one in your area, that may even be across the border in another state. I'll put the link out for that as well if you want to check for electric vehicle events where you might want to show your car, or just show up and check out other cars. I'm doing one up here in Martinsburg, but we'll see if we'll have one maybe in Charleston area or somewhere not too far away. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Come on.